Welcome to another episode of Responsible AI in Action. I'm your host, Charles Dimov, CMO of kama.ai, the leader in responsible AI technologies. With me today is Brian Ritchie, CEO and founder of kama.ai. Brian leads this indigenous Canadian AI development platform that focuses entirely on responsible AI technologies. In this case, responsible kind of talks about ethics, accuracy, accountability, transparency, and the trustworthy nature of this AI platform. And today we are going to talk about auditability in AI systems. So with that, welcome, Brian.
Hello, Charles. Happy to be back.
And wonderful to have you back. Absolutely. It's been delightful conversation so far and very interesting ones. So Brian, let's start off. We'll dive right in here let's talk about zero tolerance mandates. Now, I know that in our conversations in the past, you had mentioned that there was a chief product officer in one of the banking sectors that they stated something about the enterprise tolerance for AI hallucinations isn't just low, it has to be absolute zero. That was their statement, right? And it completely, if you think about it, it makes sense. So first of all, I've got two questions here. First of all, is that even possible with AI technologies of today? And then the second part is, how do you create an AI with zero hallucinations for regulated businesses?
Yeah. Okay. So good question. So the answer is yes, it's possible with AI technologies today. Having said that, it's not possible or much more difficult with some AI technologies than other AI technologies. So I think that one thing, without getting too technical, is there is a class of AI, which we call generative AI, which we're all very familiar with nowadays, right? And most of the major vendors that are offering solutions are operating in this space. There's another class of AI, which is called deterministic AI or probabilistic AI, or symbolic AI. Symbolic refers to like plus and minus, so it's very logical. And it's actually an older style of AI. And we happen to be somewhere, maybe you could say, in the middle. We've developed this graph concept. We've talked in the past about a knowledge graph, and we determined how to build an AI, a conversational AI, out of a graph architecture. What's good about graphs is they're very expandable. In the old days of symbolic AI or deterministic AI, it was literally building out all kinds of code about if this, then that, and that's not very efficient. So within a knowledge graph, if you can figure out how to make a knowledge graph into an AI, then it's very flexible and you can populate the graph with many, many things. And all of those things happen to turn out to be deterministic, and therefore they can provide this zero tolerance, let's say, application. Hallucinations is another matter. So I would say that there are two major concerns within the enterprise market. One is that my AI will say the wrong thing. The other one is that my AI will do the wrong thing. And both can be, let's say, accomplished within this, let's say, symbolic or deterministic AI platform. In the case of saying or doing the wrong thing, we only allow the knowledge graph and other related deterministic capabilities to be in control. And by doing that, then it's very predictable. It's also very transparent. You mentioned that in terms of responsible AI, of what the machine is going to do. It's only going to do what the options are programmed in it to do. So that's doing the right thing. In the case of saying the right thing, it's a little bit more variable. Of course, we know that if you train a large language model on many, many things, all of the information on the internet, which has been done basically, and all of the articles in the Wall Street Journal and all of the other resources that have been used to train these models, it can often, you make an inquiry, you say a prompt, whatever it is, you provide an utterance, and it's going to do its best to answer the questions. The more information that is in the large language model, the more possibilities there is for what we call hallucinations, which is a combination of maybe something from one article or news post together with a combination of another news post, and now we could actually create a mistruth. So that's what we know as of hallucinations. Now, Kama is not let's say, a deterministic AI bigot. We also embrace generative AI, and in fact, you can use all of the popular models within our platform to create generative responses. But if you want to have the least amount of hallucinations, possibly not zero, because maybe as long as you're using generative, there always may be a possibility. But if we're going to limit the possibilities to the absolute minimum, then let's make sure that we feed the generative AI with exactly the right documents we choose to use. We want to inform the generative brain, as we like to say, with the information that is absolutely the right information to be used. And we have something we call kama trusted collections. These are very purposely built collections, literally take drag and drop only the required documents, only the approved documents, and put that into a vector database, we call it. So vectorize those documents. That becomes a kama trusted collection, formed exactly from the information that the enterprise wants to inform that generative side of the brain. And then we're going to get the absolute minimum amount of hallucinations. So it might not be zero. And therefore, because we're the responsible AI, if we're going to deliver that type of information, we will also inform the user. Could be an employee, could be a client. So inward facing AI, outward facing AI. We will inform them that, okay, this stuff comes from the knowledge graph side of the brain, and you can take it to the bank. This other stuff might come from a trusted collection. It should be quite accurate, but please check the links. We'll give you the links to the actual source documents, and you can validate for yourself that it's the right information. But by at least limiting the generative side to only trusted, entrusted documents from the enterprise, then we're making sure that we've got the absolute right documents, therefore the least amount of hallucinations.
Okay, so in effect, that basically means that the deterministic side, you can pretty much say, okay, you know what, you're not going to have hallucinations on that side. However, if you're using the probabilistic side, in other words, the LLM technology, even with RAG, or what we call trusted collections, there's still a small chance that it's possible. So to be responsible, you're basically alerting the user to say, are you okay with us doing a generative answer? In which case, there might be a slight error factor.
Yeah, and you made a comment earlier about a VP in a financial institution, and that person said that, I like this idea of combining the best of both worlds, the generative AI and the knowledge graph AI, but in our case, we are a bank. We need zero. We have zero tolerance. We need zero, let's say, inaccuracies, zero process errors. We would use, this is them speaking, not me, we would use probably only the deterministic power for the outward-facing, client-facing agents. And maybe inside the organization, inside the financial institution, we could use your generative and provide these warnings, but also use this trusted collection idea.
Okay, that's good. So in other words, there's the capability of basically switching entirely to a completely safe solution, which is good. Okay, excellent. Nice. Thanks for that clarification. Now, in the context of what you were just talking about, so on the responsible AI side, you kind of mentioned about the transparency, the explainability as core components of what the kama AI solution does, which is good. That's excellent. That gives customers that flexibility and transparency and explainability. That's extremely useful. Now, when a CEO or a corporate lawyer, when they ask where exactly did the AI agent come up with this answer, what has to happen to trace it back so you can explain the origins of where the AI actually came up with a particular answer?
So there's, I guess, two cases. One is I could actually view the conversations that went on. We could call that logging, right? Logging, or being able to have an auditable platform that we can audit after the fact. And then the other one, though, is, okay, someone asked a question about this or that. We know the inquiry. Where exactly is that information? In the generative world, you will see experts commenting on that it's very difficult to understand where, of all those vectorized documents, of all those sources, where exactly did the algorithm, because that's what it is, it's an algorithm, it's a probabilistic algorithm to predict which words are the best words to put together. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to go in to that large language model, all of those vectorized documents, and say, this is how the algorithm actually chose these pieces to put together and form this response. So that's a challenge. And for that challenge, because of that challenge, it is, let's say, problematic to have this understandability or transparency of where the information actually came from. In the case of a knowledge graph, if we have an inquiry and we go into the system, we can say, okay, we saw last night in a log, possibly, that this answer came out. Well, that answer is deterministic. That answer is not going to change. We can go and find the record where this is, we call it information payload is. We know it's attached to this type of inquiry. Person's looking for insurance information, what type of insurance products do you offer or whatever. We can understand that inquiry and we can see exactly within the knowledge graph what are the options that we're going to give this person to address their insurance inquiry. And literally you could go in, enter each one of these, and you can see each word. And if one of those words you would prefer change to something else, you can change that word. And then it's going to be, those will be the words that come out. So if it's the lawyer, if it's the CEO, if it's the risk officer, there's absolutely no question about where those words came from. And if I want to change them, I can change them at any point in time.
Okay. All right. So there's a way. That's the important part. So next question. In an earlier episode of Responsible AI in Action, I was chatting with Zain Nayani, and he brought up a crucial need for AI information to be auditable. Now, this way, a company could basically trace their steps back, just as we kind of just chatted about and discussed moments ago. They can trace their steps back when questions do come up, similar to what the lawyer was asking. Now, how should the logging and tracking take place of who authorized specific documents to be added to a RAG or to the trusted collection? Is that something that the system should be tracking, or do all systems track that? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for all vendors and how they manage their environments. Right. I will say that accountability and which has a requirement of auditability, but accountability is important, right? In my opinion, that's more important than auditability. Auditability is kind of like rear view mirror stuff, right? What happened last night, and let's figure out why it happened, who put those words there, who put those documents there. So that's important. Having said that, what's more important is predictability. Let's put the right stuff there, and if we want to govern something through audits, it's actually not a real-time solution, right? If I'm going to look at something that went wrong, audit it and see where it went wrong and how I can fix it, that's not a real time, and we can't use that to drive predictability and therefore reliability. So what we want to do is, yes, things need to be auditable, and that's just good governance, right? So if we're building a trusted collection and we're going to take some documents, and maybe it's you're the chief marketing officer, we want to make sure that we have the right product information. We want to make sure we include the blog post that we wrote last Tuesday. All of those information, all of that information could go into a trusted collection. We're going to vectorize that collection. And what we do is, when we call it publish, when you want to vectorize those things, you push the publish button, let's say, and at the back end of our system, it will be recognized. We call that, first of all, we have a special role for that person. That person is called the knowledge administrator, which is slightly opposed to the knowledge manager. A knowledge manager puts information into a knowledge graph. We made a special role for the knowledge administrator, and they put documents into these trusted collections. And when they push the button that says publish, we will know that it was Charles or it was Brian who actually published this at 12:32 last night. And that's the collection that was running live when this inquiry came through and that answer went out. So we not only log the documents that went into the trusted collection and when they were published, we also log, of course, the chats, all the chats that go on in our system, whether they're deterministic or probabilistic, generative or knowledge graph. And we will say, based on, here was the inquiry, here was the response, and here was the model that was used, because it's in the case of generative, it's not a kama model, it's a best of breed model from the industry. The enterprise chooses those models. Here's the model that was used, and here's the collection that was used, and here's when this collection was published, right? So we know everything about that generative response. And now if we want to make a change in that, because, things happen, whatever it is, maybe we found out one of two things. We don't like the response, but it's not a wrong response. It's a response that's in a document that we have not really updated recently, right? So
Yes.
it's not garbage in, garbage out, but if it's old information in, you'll get old information out. So you might see it's not a hallucination. We have better ways of saying that now. We have better words, better language, better product descriptions. We've changed our brand to this. And if you include an older document, then you might not like the response, but not necessarily because of hallucinating, just because of style preferences, newer marketing language, whatever it is. Now you can go and say, oh, okay, I see it was using that older collection that we had. I have to republish this collection now with a new document, right?
That's a good distinction that you make there, because that is actually, if I might highlight one point, I like the fact that you brought up the knowledge administrator and the knowledge manager. We read so many articles these days about how, oh my goodness, there's lots of jobs that are going to go away as a result of AI. So here's a good example of two jobs that are net new, that did not exist 5 years ago, that are actually kind of emerging because of AI technology. So anyway, so touche on that one. That's good. Next question here. So we've now talking about kind of what we see in the media and what we read about. We've all read and seen some of the statistics about the failure rates that we're seeing in enterprises, specifically when they're bringing in AI projects inside the enterprise today. A good one was MIT. They came up with a study just last year, and their study showed this incredible, astounding 95% failure rate in these projects. And then, okay, if you didn't believe that one, earlier in the year, BCG had come up with a study that basically said 80% of these AI deployments are not hitting their return on investment. So their ROI numbers are just not being hit. A lot of companies think that launching an internal LLM, today's the probabilistic AI system, they think that by launching this, that means that they've scaled AI. What's the difference between experimentation and truly fully functional enterprise deployments?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a very timely topic, of course, and the timely topic has been going on for almost, as long as we've known popularly the generative AI solutions. But there was a time generative AI solutions came on board, and then the idea of what we'd call agentic AI, which are autonomous agents that can be trusted. That would be a requirement, that these autonomous agents can be trusted in the enterprise. And that idea appeared probably about 18 months ago now. So maybe at the beginning of or mid 2024, 2025, early 2025. And we expected that these things would have become trustworthy by now. We've seen very recent reports, newer than the ones that you just mentioned, where the researcher, it happens to be Gartner, we follow them a lot, and they said that in a report, I think it was January 6th, they said that agentic AI agents have not yet come to the point where they are trustworthy by enterprise CIOs. This is the world that we're living in. We believe that through the other approach, we like this idea of combining the best of both worlds, but we like to put the, let's say, deterministic AI in control and use the generative AI to supplement. But we're firm believers that in terms of the control part, it should be controlled and orchestrated by the firm part, the engineered part, right? And knowledge graphs are engineered. Robotic process automation or intelligent automation tools, those are engineered. When I say engineered, it's a technical person who've put them together. They've studied all the use cases, the edge cases, and they said, okay, this bot, this knowledge graph, it should represent what the organization is trying to do or does do. These are our processes. These are what we would like to automate. So we, right now, in the current state of technology, we would rather suggest that we can count on engineered solutions because we know that they're engineered by humans. We're big fans of humans. As you mentioned, there are new jobs coming that require human oversight, human input, human design. While the humans can also, with their experience and the enterprise's experience, can design the deterministic approaches to all of these things. That's better for the market right now, better for the enterprise market because of the zero tolerance, zero risk requirement. I think that, who knows, things may change, right? But we build solutions for today, I guess is the point. And we're very comfortable with our solution in terms of its reliability today.
Excellent. Well, that's a good answer. All right, my last question here. So I think that by now we've kind of talked a little bit about, and we now have a good understanding of when important decisions are at stake. Probabilistic answers just aren't enough. We need something to make sure that it's, providing the more correct answer or the correct answer, period. So where do you think that responsible AI fits into those high impact scenarios?
Yeah, I think there's many cases, and I think that you mentioned regulatory environments, right? Financial environments which are regulated.
Yes.
These are cases where the enterprise cannot tolerate risk, because if they do, their license can be removed, right? Not only that, you've got a big brand issue, right? If you did something wrong, and someone, of course, in the social media world, people love to post, they've got some good content. Now something happened, I'm going to put that out there on my newsfeed, et cetera, et cetera. Well, two things have happened. One is, of course, your brand has been damaged, and now people around the world are seeing that this happened. But the second thing is, if there's enough occurrences of this, then the regulator might even say, I don't think this is, forget AI, I don't think this is responsible enough for you to be operating under the current regulatory requirements, right? Another one is medical. Taking a risk on diagnosing, there are fantastic opportunities for AI in medicine. And those are the opportunities where an AI is going to, unravel the human genome, or look at how do we build a virus, an antivirus in 12 months, as we did with COVID, right? These are fantastic opportunities, but we're not just going to build those antiviruses and start injecting people with them. We're going to build it. We're going to review the information and the designs of these antivirus with human experts in immunology or whatever it is. We're then going to go through the appropriate trials. This is a regulated environment as well. Make sure that we've done the appropriate trials in whichever way is responsible. And then after the appropriate licensing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then we're going to bring something out, right? So I think that there are times when, yes, AI is fantastic to help people in medicine, but I would not want an AI to diagnose me and prescribe me with medicines for me, right? Without a doctor looking at that, let's say, that recommendation or that diagnosis. So I think that, where human risk is let's say, is possible. You might say the wrong thing. You might do the wrong thing to a human patient. That's huge. That's in the medical industry, but also regulatory environment where if I treat this customer wrong, one, it can be bad for my brand, and therefore my business.
Yes.
But two, it can also be bad for the regulator and their, let's say, their opinion of my license and whether I'm continue to be regulated to operate in this market.
It's good to hear that. Yeah, you're right. I guess when high level judgment is required, it's human in the loop is still extremely important. We want to know that whatever, if it's a serious diagnosis, that a doctor has still at least put their eyes on it and said, yeah, that sounds right, or it seems reasonable, or not, right? So, and use that
I'll
human
just give
judgment.
one more
Yeah.
small
Yeah,
example. I
please.
mean, those are big environments and big
Yes.
things at risk, right? We have
Yes.
a customer, a very good customer of ours. They did a case study with us. This is all public. It's all posted on our website. And they said that they're in the business of saving animals. That's what they do. Aspen Valley Wildlife Sanctuary, one of our best customers in terms of how we feel about doing business with them, how we feel that an AI can somehow support animals in let's say the wilderness, or at least in their sanctuary. And they said, their executive director said, it wasn't until we understood that the words coming out of this AI agent could be exactly our words that we decided to go ahead with an AI agent for our website to tell people 24/7 around the clock. They can't, not that they can't afford, they do not have staff working 24/7 around the clock. So it was important to them that people get information to be able to help maybe an animal that might have been injured or something like that. But they wanted to make sure our reputation is on the line. We care about these animals. We care about the people who have maybe are dealing with these animal situations. We want to make sure that they get exactly our words, not the words of an AI who has, studied the internet or whatever. It's our words, and we know, to your point earlier, exactly where these words are, and where, if we wanted to change one word, we can. It's transparent, fully transparent, and we can change it. So it's not just the big banks. It's not just the big hospitals. It's also, it's your brand, and if a certain operator or enterprise, has a lot of care, a lot of respect for the way they do things, then they're going to want, exact information as well.
Absolutely. I mean, as a chief marketing officer, as having been a VP of marketing for many, many years, any scenario which touches the brand, I think, is important to have a responsible AI solution, because you don't want to just have any AI kind of go out there and get questioned on your chatbot and then go and do an internet search and then come back with some information which is perhaps not correct or false or misogynistic or some other nasty element, because that's going to be a reflection on your brand. Absolutely. So any high risk scenarios. Very good. Brian, with that, I'd like to bring it to a close. Thank you so much for this fascinating conversation about responsible AI, technology, auditability, and all of that nature. Also, just talking about the state of AI and the importance of this type of technology for enterprises. Brian Ritchie is the CEO and founder of kama.ai, a Canadian Indigenous company and the leader in responsible composite AI agents. That wraps another episode of Responsible AI in Action. In each conversation, we speak with leaders across the AI industry and those working in enterprise transformation to explore what's actually working. We look at what's working, what's not, and how to deploy AI responsibly in the real world. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Responsible AI in Action.